Webster defines crunch time as a critical moment or period, like the end of a game, when decisive action is needed. Every sports fan knows this time in the game. Your palms sweat just a little more, your heart races just a little bit faster, and you live and die with every play until the final seconds tick off the clock and you're either celebrating a victory or disappointed by the defeat. The team at Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network understands just how critical these moments are. For us, it begins as soon as the next set of games are on the board. We evaluate the opening lines and any breaking news throughout the week. We cover each game inside and out, whether it's from inside the locker room to a huddle down on the field, the court, or the ice. We take you inside the meeting room with scouts, coaches, and executives. We have our fingers on the pulse of all the sports that we cover: the National Hockey League, NBA, college basketball, college football, and the National Football League. We are the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network, and we're here to help you find your sports advantage. After all the data has been crunched, we then turn it over to Kenneth for the best analysis around. His unique perspective in both understanding the data and how it applies to the game and how you win is the Crunch Time Sports Advantage. Are you ready? The Crunch Time Jet is fueled and ready for takeoff, and the Crunch Time Express is about to leave the station. Your VIP pass has been approved, so all aboard.
Welcome to the SEC Conference Call, your ultimate guide to one of the nation's best basketball conferences. This show is your courtside seats for all of the great action. We will spotlight the players to watch, take you inside the huddle with the coach's playbook, and deliver the expert analysis you've come to expect from us here at the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network. We're thrilled to cover the heart-pounding action of this incredible conference. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. You can also follow us on Twitter at CrunchTimeVIP. And don't forget to visit our website at crunchtimesportsadvantage.com for all of our fantastic blogs and to learn how you can join the Crunch Time Express with one of our handicapping packages. Whether you're looking for an edge in sports wagering or just want more insights, we've got you covered. 16 teams, one conference, infinite excitement. The SEC has been the stage for legendary players, iconic coaches, and unforgettable rivalries. This is where passion meets competition and championship dreams are forged. Welcome to the SEC Conference Call. And now let's head to the studio with our host, Jessica, and our founder and senior analyst, Kenneth.
Welcome to the SEC Conference Call, your weekly courtside seat to all things SEC basketball. This week, the stage is set, the countdown is over, and the fireworks are about to begin with conference play tips off on Saturday, and the entire SEC is in action. With 16 teams taking the floor, rivalries are renewed, stakes are higher, and every possession matters. Let's take a quick look at the matchups that are kicking off this journey to March. Oklahoma heads to Tuscaloosa to face Alabama in a showdown at Coleman Coliseum. Missouri travels to Auburn, where the Tigers clash at Neville Arena. In a marquee matchup, Florida visits Kentucky in the legendary Rupp Arena. Vanderbilt takes on LSU in Baton Rouge at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. Georgia heads to Oxford to battle Ole Miss at Lloyd Noble Center. South Carolina meets Mississippi State in Starkville at the Sandy and John Black Pavilion. Arkansas challenges Tennessee in Knoxville's Thompson Bowling Arena. And in the Lone Star State, Texas squares off against Texas A&M at Reed Arena. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's break it all down. Because the SEC Conference Call starts right now. And now, let me welcome in our founder and senior analyst, Kenneth, to break down all 8 games.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome into our first show of the SEC Conference Call. My fantastic team has done a great job of getting all of this put together, so I cannot wait to get into these 8 matchups. Let's start right there in Oxford, Mississippi, with the matchup between the Georgia Bulldogs and the Ole Miss Rebels. And what we're expecting in this contest is a very closely contested ball game here coming up tomorrow, if you're listening to this tonight or if you're catching it early Saturday morning. With an early tip-off there, we're expecting this to be a very competitive matchup here. And Let's just go ahead and get into the game context here because there are a lot of great notes, and we're going to try to fly through all of these terrific games um, in a really decent pace here. So, ladies, you got control of the boards. Let's hit it. All right, you are looking live at the Lloyd Noble Center, where the Ole Miss Rebels welcome in the Georgia Bulldogs in an intriguing SEC matchup. Both teams enter with strong records and aspirations of dominance in their first conference game. Mike White's Georgia Bulldogs team brings in a 12-1 record, while Chris Beard's Ole Miss Rebels stand at 11-2, looking to leverage their home court advantage in this contest. And as that fades down a little bit, all right, let's get into the profiles here because I'm looking at a Georgia Bulldog team that comes in ranked 35th in our power rankings. Georgia has excelled on the offensive side of the court there, averaging 82.6 points per game. That's 53rd in the nation. They are holding their opponents to 64 points per game. That's 34th out of 362 teams, by the way. I'm sorry, 364 teams. Thank you for that correction there. The Bulldogs rely on efficient scoring. They're shooting at about 51% from the field, and they are absolutely dominating on the glass with a total rebounding percentage of 59% there. That is absolutely phenomenal there. For the Ole Miss Rebels, they come in ranked 34th in our power rankings. Notice that there. Ole Miss has showcased a very balanced attack, scoring 80.8 points per game. That's 73rd nationally, while allowing just 65.4 points per game. That's good for 43rd. Their defense forces turnovers 15.5 per game, and that creates transition opportunities. You want to understand what Chris Beard is all about? I just gave you that stat. They force you to turn the ball over, and then they're looking to get out in transition, get either an easy layup or get a transition three there. This game kicks off at 11 a.m. on the SEC network. So let's get into the comparison here. Let's start with looking at it from the Georgia offense and what they're going to face against this Ole Miss Rebel defense here. Georgia absolutely thrives on effective field goal shooting percentage. 57%, and they're rebounding. They're going to face an Ole Miss defense that, as I mentioned, forces 15.5 turnovers per game, and Ole Miss limits their opponent's field goal shooting to 41.1%. The key for Georgia will be maintaining an offensive flow and exploiting Ole Miss' occasional lapse in defensive rebounding. Now, let's flip it over here and take a look at the other side of the court. When Ole Miss has the ball and they're going up against this Georgia defense, Ole Miss comes in averaging 80.8 points per game, shooting a respectable 45% from the field. Georgia's defense, however, limits opponents to shooting 38.5% shooting, and they excel in controlling the paint. Ole Miss's ability to convert second chance points due to their really good job of hitting the glass and getting those offensive rebounds could be the deciding factor in this matchup. Let's take a look at some other keys here. The rebounding and possession battle. Georgia boasts a significant rebounding edge, particularly on the offensive boards, averaging 38% offensive rebounding percentage versus Ole Miss's 26.9. Controlling the glass will be vital for Georgia to create those extra scoring opportunities, as well as limiting Ole Miss transition game. As far as when we look at the assist and ball movement, Ole Miss averages 16.4 assists per game, and that reflects in their really good assist rate there. Over 58, almost 59% assist rate. What that means is you're getting really good ball movement, and your shooters are getting much better looks at the basket, and they've been knocking those down. That's why you have that high assist rate there. Georgia, on the other hand, they averaged 16 assists per game, also with a very good assist rate at 55%. This matches their distribution, but they struggle slightly with the turnovers, averaging a turnover rate of 16%. For Georgia in this contest, they must limit the turnovers in this contest. That will be a deciding factor on their offensive efficiency, especially being on the road in this ball game. Let's talk about the pace and game flow here. Both teams operate at identical tempos here, averaging about 70 possessions per game for both teams. So the game pace is unlikely to favor either team significantly, but Ole Miss's home crowd and pressure defense could disrupt that Georgia rhythm. When we talk about clutch situations here, Georgia has played 4 close games, winning all 4 of them. Ole Miss has played 3 close games. They've won 2 of them. Both teams have shown composure in tight games. Georgia's slightly better from the free throw line. As we look at that matchup, just a little bit better from the free throw line here is the Georgia Bulldogs, but not by much. That could be the deciding factor in this contest. Just some final thoughts here as we get ready to wrap up this particular contest. I think it's going to be, like I said, a very closely contested ball game here, and we'll see if Ole Miss is able to get a big home win starting off conference play. Let's give you some key players to watch for both teams. Now, all of these stats are in the non-conference, so keep that in mind. So I'm just going to give you a couple of players from each team to watch here. For Georgia, Mr. Montgomery, their shooting guard there, 16 points per game, shooting at a 73% clip. Wow, that is phenomenal. Shooting 80% from the free throw stripe there. Asia Newell, 15.5 points per game, 6.5 boards per game, doing that on 59% shooting. And then Dakota Lefew, almost 13 points per game, shooting over 41% from the three-point line. That is absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to give you a couple of guys here for Ole Miss here. Sean Padula, averaging almost 15 points per game, shooting just a tick below 41% from the three-point line, knocking down over 85% of his free throws. Jalen Murray, averaging 13 points per game, also shooting 44% from the three-point line there. And then Matthew Morrell, talked about him quite a bit last year, averaging almost 12 points per game, doing it on 43% field goal percentage there, and knocking down 41% of his shots there. So I think this is going to be a very closely contested ball game. Looking forward to this game kicking off there to start the action on Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Central Time. Let's move on to our next matchup, and that is where we find the Mississippi State Bulldogs welcoming in the Gamecocks of South Carolina. Now, when I first looked at the bracket of all the games tipping off, and that game is slated for a 1 p.m. Tip there in Starkville, also on the SEC network. I was intrigued by a lot of things in this ball game, and let's go ahead and get to the game context here. As Mississippi State welcomes in South Carolina in this SEC showdown, South Carolina, led by head coach Lamont Parrish, enters as the underdog with a 10-3 record, while Chris Jans' Mississippi State Bulldogs come in with a very impressive 12-1 record, riding a lot of momentum from their stifling defense and balanced offense. Taking a look at the profiles here, South Carolina ranked 63rd in our power rankings. South Carolina has played 3 games against quality opponents, securing 1 win, while their offensive efficiency over 112 and a solid defense at about 97.8, and their rebounding, fantastic job there by South Carolina with a total rebounding percentage of 52% there. They've shown some vulnerabilities once they've kind of stepped up in weight class a little bit this season. For the home team, Mississippi State, they rank 19th in our power rankings. Mississippi State combines an elite offense, averaging right around 84 points per game, 36th nationally, with a very robust defense. Folks, this defense is only giving up 68 points per game. That puts you just a tick outside of the top 100, but that is absolutely phenomenal, and they get it done on the glass as well. Their ability to force turnovers, almost 14 forced turnovers per game, makes them very formidable, especially with this game being at home. Let's take a look at the offensive comparisons here. Start with the Gamecocks. South Carolina comes in averaging 75.6 points per game. That's 188 nationally out of that 364 teams playing in Division I basketball around the country. But they struggle with consistency, shooting about 45.8% from the field, but where they really struggle is behind that three-point line, only shooting 35% from 3. Mississippi State's defense holding opponents to 42% shooting and forcing 14 turnovers per game. The key in this matchup for South Carolina will be their ability to break through Mississippi State's disciplined defense and create open looks. For Mississippi State's offense going up against this Gamecock defense, Mississippi State comes in averaging just a tick below 84 points per game with an efficient field goal percentage of almost 54%. South Carolina's defense does allow their opponents to shoot quite not quite as well, only allowing 65.6 points per game. That's 52nd in the nation, but they have struggled against high efficiency offenses based on what our data is showing. Mississippi State's ability to control the glass, generate those second chance points based on their fantastic job of the offensive rebounding percentage, 35% on the offensive glass there. That is actually really good. Will likely put pressure on that South Carolina defense. We talked about the rebounding and possession battle here. Mississippi State has a significant rebounding edge, especially on the offensive side of the glass there. And their ability to control the boards will likely tilt possession battles in Mississippi State's favor, giving them extra scoring opportunities. And that's where you see a lot of those kick out threes off of offensive rebounds. Mississippi State's able to knock those down in this ball game. You can see them getting some separation in this contest. Let's talk about the assist and ball movement here. Mississippi State comes in averaging about 17.5 assists per game, showcasing their offensive cohesiveness and ball movement. South Carolina only averaging about 14.5 assists per game. So they're relying on a lot of individual playmakers, but they will need better spacing and execution to counter this Mississippi State disruptive defense. Talk about pace and game flow here. South Carolina plays at a very deliberate pace, 67 possessions per game, while Mississippi State operates just at a little bit faster pace, not by much, 69 possessions per game. However, Mississippi State's ability to dictate tempo, especially at home, could force South Carolina into playing a little bit of a faster game than what they're comfortable with. Let's talk about in-clutch situations here. South Carolina has played in 3 close games, winning 2 of them, while Mississippi State has played in 4 close games, winning all 4 of them, demonstrating their poise in high-pressure moments. As far as Mississippi State's clutch free throw shooting percentage of 69%, and their turnover discipline, only 11% of their possessions ending in turnovers, could give them an edge in late game situations here. Let's get to some key players. Well, let's get the insights here, and then I'll get to the key players for both teams here. In our game simulations, it strongly favors Mississippi State due to their defense and rebounding dominance, contributing to their projected margin in this ball game. South Carolina's path to an upset hinges on exceptional shooting and limiting turnovers in this ball game. Key players to watch in this contest for South Carolina: Colin Murray Boyles, averaging 16.6 points per game in the non-conference, 9 rebounds on about 65% field goal percentage. Jamari Thomas, 12.6 points per game, 3.3 assists per game, only shooting 39% from the field. Got to get much better shooting there from Mr. Thomas there. And then Nick Pringle, 10.6 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game, doing that on 67% field goal percentage shooting. So going to need him to definitely hit a double-double in this ball game. Key players for Mississippi State. Let's start with Josh Hubbard. Comes in averaging 17.5 points per game, a little over 3 assists per game, doing that on 38% shooting from the three-point line. Got to make sure you get a hand in his face if you're South Carolina. Claudell Harris Jr., 10.5 points per game. Will need a big-time performance from this young man as well coming up in this ball game. I was trying to take a look at a stat here as he averages 30, looks like about 38% from the three-point line, knocking down about 2 threes per game there. So want to make sure I had that stat right. And then Keyshawn Murphy comes in averaging a little over 10 points per game, almost 8 rebounds per game. Will definitely need a big performance out of this young man coming up. As I mentioned, this game is slated to kick off about 1 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. And that will be coming to you on the SEC Network. Our next contest, we will head up to the Thompson-Boling Arena, and we will spend some time with the number 2 ranked team in the nation, and that is the Tennessee Volunteers. And as we head up to Rocky Top, I want to say a quick hello to my good friend Julie Balls, co-host of the Matt Locked and Loaded show. You can catch them. I'll talk about their new time slot coming up next week. So let's head up to Rocky Top in a game where Arkansas needs to get a signature win in this contest. Tennessee is one of the nation's most dominant teams, entering this contest undefeated with a 13-0 record and an elite defensive profile. Arkansas, led by head coach John Calipari, no stranger to taking a team into Knoxville, 11-2 record, and is eager to test themselves against Tennessee's suffocating defense. Both teams feature strong rosters and contrasting styles that promises a thrilling matchup in this contest. Let's give you the team profiles here. Let's start with the visiting team, Arkansas. Woo Pig indeed. They come in ranked 33rd in our power rankings. Arkansas boasts that 11-2 record, as I mentioned, have struggled against quality opponents, winning only one of their 3 such games thus far. When we look at the Tennessee Volunteers, they rank 2nd in our power rankings. You know who sits at number 1. We'll be talking about them here in just a moment. Tennessee has been dominant on both ends of the court. And with a defense that is allowing just 56.2 points per game, which is 2nd best in the nation, you can see why the Volunteers have absolutely been getting it done early on in the season. This game is slated to kick off right at noon They're on ESPN. So let's get to the offense and defensive comparison for both teams. And let's start with the Arkansas offense versus that Tennessee defense. Arkansas comes in averaging 82.5 points per game. That's 55th in the nation, with a high efficiency of 51.5% field goal percentage, 36.8 shooting from behind the arc there. And they will be tested against this Tennessee interior defense, which is holding opponents to just 34.7% field goal shooting overall. And they really do a fantastic job of guarding that three-point line. Opponents are only knocking down 24.6% from the three-point line. Folks, that is definitely how you want to play defense in this era of basketball, where a lot of teams are shooting a lot of threes. You're able to guard that three-point line with that kind of consistency. No wonder Tennessee has the record that they have. Arkansas must find a way to avoid turnovers against this Tennessee disciplined defense. Tennessee forces opponents into a little over 13 turnovers per game. And boy, do they love to get out in transition there. Let's take a look at the other side of the ball, where when we look at Tennessee's offense versus this Arkansas defense, Tennessee comes in averaging 80 points per game. That's 88th in the nation, but it's fueled by their ability to dominate on the offensive glass. 37% offensive rebounding percentage there, earning those extra opportunities. Arkansas allows their opponents to shoot almost 41% from the field, but they excel in forcing turnovers, also forcing 13 turnovers per game. Arkansas comes in averaging 5.7 blocked shots per game. That's phenomenal. Tennessee's key will be maintaining offensive efficiency while navigating Arkansas's aggressive defense. Let's talk about the rebounding and possession battles here. Tennessee holds a significant edge on the board with a 58.7% total rebounding percentage compared to Arkansas's 54.1%. Their dominance on the offensive glass could be a deciding factor as it creates second chance opportunities and disrupts that Arkansas defensive rhythm. Arkansas must limit Tennessee's offensive rebounding to stay competitive in this ball game. As far as the assist and ball movement, both teams come in averaging 16.8 assists per game. That is absolutely phenomenal. Now, Tennessee superior assist percentage of over 59% highlights their ability to move the ball effectively and generate open looks. Arkansas' slightly higher turnover percentage of almost 15% compared to Tennessee's 13.8 could lead to extra possessions for the Vols in this ball game. Now, Arkansas prefers to play at a faster pace, averaging 71 possessions per game, while Tennessee operates at a little bit slower tempo at 66 possessions per game. Tennessee's ability to control the tempo will be crucial, as a slower game favors their disciplined defense and methodical style of offense. In clutch situations, Arkansas has played 3 close games within 7 points, winning 2 of them. And they are undefeated in true road games, going 2-0 there in the non-conference. Tennessee's only had 1 close game on their record, which they won, and they've been a perfect 8-0 at home thus far, demonstrating their ability to defend home court effectively. Free throw shooting percentage slightly favors Tennessee in this ball game, 75% to 73%, which could be critical in a tightly contested ball game. Let's give you some final thoughts here as we wrap up this contest. Tennessee's defensive strength and rebounding advantage could be the driving factor in them winning this contest. For Arkansas, they must have the ability to force turnovers and score efficiently, keeping this game competitive. Let's give you some key players to watch there for Arkansas and for the home team, the Tennessee Volunteers. Starting with their guard, AT, averaging almost 18 points per game, almost 6 rebounds per game, getting it done from the free throw stripe, shooting 70% and 62% from the field. Got to talk about Boogie there in the backcourt as well. Comes in averaging about 16 points per game, a little over 3.5 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, and doing a fantastic job there from behind the 3-point line. And then finally going to talk about their other guard, DJ Wagner, averaging almost 10 points per game and shooting over 45% from the field. As far as the key players for the Vols, got to start with their guard, Chaz Lanier, averaging just a tick below 20 points per game in the non-conference and shooting it from lights out from the 3-point line. Jordan Gagne, averaging just a tick below 12 points per game, knocking down almost 48% from the field. And then Double Z comes in averaging a tick below 12 points per game, averaging almost 4 rebounds per game, 8 assists per game. So fantastic job there by Double Z. We'll see if Tennessee can protect that home court, or does Arkansas pull off the upset on the road there with that game tipping off at noon. Coming up next, it is our number 1 team in the nation, and that is the it's the Auburn Tigers, slightly edging out Tennessee in our power rankings as the number 1 team in our power rankings. So you are looking live, to quote our godfather, Brent Musburger. They're on the plains in Auburn, Alabama. This is a marquee matchup in the SEC as Auburn, ranked number 1 in our power ranking, brings in an elite resume into this game, featuring that 11-1 record. And Missouri, also boasting a strong 11-2 record, faces a daunting challenge on the road against Bruce Pearl's dominant Tiger team there. And let's talk about the team profile here for the visiting team. Missouri comes in ranked 45th in our power rankings. Missouri excels on the offensive side. They're averaging 87 points per game. That is 10th best in the nation. And their defense has been respectable, allowing 67.6 points per game. Head coach Dennis Gates' team thrive on high efficiency scoring and forcing opponents' turnovers. 15.5 turnovers per game. For the Auburn Tigers, as I mentioned, ranked number 1 in our power rankings, Auburn has been an absolute juggernaut, averaging 88 points per game, 5th best in the nation, while allowing just 64.8 points per game. Bruce Pearl Tigers have been dominant on both ends of the floor, led by an imposing defense and a high-octane offense. Speaking of offenses, let's get into the comparison here, and let's start with Missouri. Missouri's offense is powered by efficient scoring. Let's round it, 51% shooting from the field, and a high volume free throw attempts. This team likes to get to the line, averaging 29 free throw attempts per game. Yeah, that is telling me that this team is very aggressive, getting to the rim, getting teams into foul trouble, and then getting to the foul stripe. And I'm sorry I didn't mention this at the top, but this game is slated for a 3 p.m. tip-off on the SEC network on Saturday. So wanted to make sure I get that in there before I got any deeper here. So let's talk about that. Now, Auburn counters with an elite defense, allowing opponents to shoot less than 39% from the field, and they boast a 6.5 average blocks per game. Missouri must rely on quick ball movement and perimeter scoring, as Missouri is shooting, looks like 36.5% from the three-point line. They're going to have to knock down threes, as we talked about that interior defense for the Auburn Tigers is going to be a challenge here for Missouri. Now, let's talk about the Auburn Tigers versus the Missouri Tigers. Auburn's offense versus that Missouri defense. Auburn's offense has been nothing short of lethal with elite shooting splits. They're shooting 61% from inside of the arc, 37% from behind that three-point strike. With strong ball distribution, 19 assists per game. This Missouri defense, though opportunistic with 10 steals per game, they struggle in rebounding with a defensive rebounding rate of 69%. Auburn's offensive rebounding at almost 36% on the offensive glass could exploit this weakness, generating second chance opportunity for Auburn in this contest. Let's talk about the rebounding and possession battle here. Auburn holds a decisive edge on the glass there with a total rebounding percentage of 58% compared to Missouri's 52%. Mr. Braum, I should say, potential Nate Smith Award winner, potential Wooden Award winner, and could be the SEC Player of the Year, leads Auburn with 11.5 rebounds per game. That rebounding dominance for Auburn could show itself in this contest. Now, Missouri must counter with a team-wide effort to avoid being overwhelmed in the paint. This means you can't have guys leaking out. You got to literally have all five guys crashing the boards on the defensive end when Auburn has the ball, making sure Auburn's not getting that volume offensive rebounding there, getting those wide open shots from the three-point line off of offensive rebounds there. Let's talk about the assist and ball movement here. Auburn's offense flows through exceptional ball movement with the nation's leading 60% assist rate there and a 1.9 assist to turnover ratio. Missouri assist to turnover ratio, 0.9, reflects a less than disciplined offense, making turnovers a potential liability against this Auburn fast-paced attack. Both teams prefer to play at a moderate pace. Auburn slightly slower with only about 69 possessions per game versus Missouri's 70. Auburn's efficiency in transition and half-court sets could swing the tempo in their favor, particularly if they're able to control the boards. Let's talk about the in-clutch situations here. Missouri has played 3 close games, winning 2 of them. For Auburn has played 3 close games, also winning 2 of them. So both teams have showed composure in tight moments, but Auburn's home court advantage and deeper bench gives them an edge in this high-pressure situations here. Let's give some final thoughts before we give the players to watch here for both teams. Auburn's ability to score efficiently, play defense, and rebounding could be the difference in this contest if Auburn's able to get that win to kick off SEC play here. Key players from Missouri, Mark Mitchell comes in averaging almost 14 points per game, 5 rebounds. Tamar Bates comes in averaging about 13 points per game, shooting lights out from the free throw line at almost 95% there. And Caleb Grill, 12.6 points per game, really effective shooting from all over the court, whether it's inside of the arc or even behind that 3-point line. So fantastic job for him. We talked about Johnny Braum, 18 points per game, 11.5 rebounds per game, doing it on 56% shooting there. CBM, Chad Baker Mazara, 13 points per game, doing it with 94% shooting at the free throw line and 52% field goal percentage there. Tahad Petford, 11 points per game, shooting lights out, almost 42% from the 3-point line there. So if he's able to get going in this ball game, you get that Auburn crowd juiced up, could be in for a very long contest there for the Missouri Tigers. We'll see how this game plays out there. Our next contest is the LSU Tigers welcoming in the Vanderbilt Commodores. That game is slated for a 3:30 p.m. tip-off on ESPN2. We're coming to you from the beautiful Pete Maravich Assembly Center. LSU welcomes in a Vanderbilt team in a highly anticipated SEC matchup. Both teams bring strong early performances, with Vanderbilt with that 12-1 record facing off against LSU's solid 11-2 mark. This game promises to be a battle of efficient offenses and disciplined defenses. The Vanderbilt Commodores come in ranked as our 50th team in our power rankings. Vandy absolutely thrives offensively, averaging 86.5 points per game. That is 15th in the nation. Their defensive metrics also solid, holding opponents to 66 points per game. This squad has been efficient from the field, shooting about 49% from the field, and absolutely dominating the turnovers, forcing their opponents into 15.5 turnovers per game. LSU comes in ranked 59th in our power rankings, and LSU's averaging 84 points per game. That's 31st nationally, while only allowing 67 points per game there. This Tiger team relies on their defensive intensity, especially in blocking shots, averaging 5.7 blocks per game, and their opponents absolutely struggle from the line. They're only shooting about 37.5% there from the field. So fantastic job there by LSU. Let's take a look at Vandy's offense versus this LSU defense. We just talked about it. Vandy's high-scoring offense thrives on effective field goal shooting there. Comes into this contest averaging 56 effective field goal percentage. That is phenomenal there. And then absolutely a fantastic job there at the free throw stripe, where they're knocking down, make sure I'm looking at this, almost 75% from the free throw line. Really good job there overall by Vandy there. LSU counters with an elite interior defense. Their opponents are only shooting 37.7% from the field. I just mentioned the 5.7 blocks per game. The Commodores must rely on their perimeter shooting, knocking down 30. Make sure I'm looking at this right. Yes, knocking down 33.5% from the 3-point line to challenge that LSU stout rim protection there. So you're not going to see Vandy probably get a lot of layups and easy shots right there at the rim. They're going to have to knock down those threes in this contest. Let's talk about LSU offense versus this Vandy defense. LSU's balanced offense features a strong inside scoring there, shooting over 59% from inside of the arc, and consistent shooting at the free throw stripe as well. Comes in averaging shooting about 74% from the free throw line. So both teams do a fantastic job of, once they get to the charity stripe, getting those free points there. Vandy's defense, which has forced opponents into that 15 and a half turnovers per game, will look to disrupt the LSU flow on offense. Key for LSU in this contest to be successful, they must handle the pressure from Vandy and maintain their shooting efficiency. Talked about it, 48% field goal percentage shooting there for the LSU Tigers there. Looking at the rebounding and possession battle, LSU holds a slight rebounding advantage, particularly on the offensive side of the glass. LSU averages 34% offensive rebounding percentage versus Vandy's offensive rebounding percentage of 30.5. So expect LSU to probably get a few more second chance opportunities, which could be the deciding factor for the Tigers. While Vanderbilt must box out effectively to limit those extra LSU possessions in this contest. As for the assist and ball movement, Vandy comes in averaging just a tick below 16 assists per game, reflecting a fluid offense, while LSU counters with only 15 assists per game, but they excel in the assist to turnover ratio. 1.2 assists for every turnover. Maintaining possession and generating quality looks will be crucial for both teams in this game, likely to feature a lot of defensive pressure on both ends of the court. As far as the pace and game flow, both teams prefer to play at a very moderate tempo, with LSU operating at a slightly faster pace at 73 possessions per game, while Vandy comes in about 71 possessions per game. LSU's ability to push the pace and create transition opportunities could favor the Tigers if they're able to exploit Vanderbilt's defensive vulnerabilities in this matchup. As far as in-clutch situations, Vanderbilt has played one close game, and they did get a win in that one. Same can be said for LSU. Only one close game, and they were victorious. So both teams really haven't had to show a lot of composure in tight moments. But with LSU and that home crowd behind them and some defensive intensity, could be the deciding factor late in this contest. Let's give some final thoughts on this matchup before we give you the key players to watch. Could LSU's strong rebounding and defensive strength lead them to a victory at home to kick off conference play? I've talked about it leading up to this season here. Getting a win on the road literally will feel like winning two games. And conversely, losing a game at home in conference play is going to feel like you've lost two games because how deep this conference is. Let's give you the key players to watch in this contest, starting with Vanderbilt. Jason Edwards, averaging almost 19 points per game. Folks, shooting 85% from the free throw line. Fantastic there. Devin McCloughan, averaging 12 points per game, almost 8 rebounds per game, doing it on 68% field goal shooting. And then Tyler Nickel comes in averaging almost 11 points per game, doing a fantastic job of shooting from behind that three-point line there. Key players for LSU, young Mr. Carter, 17 points per game, 88% from the free throw line, shooting 46% from the field. Jordan Sears, almost 15 points per game, 82% from the free throw line. Folks, I want you to notice a trend here with their top three players that I'm mentioning here. He's also shooting 40% from the field. And Mr. Miller, Victorious Miller, 12 points per game, 80% from the free throw line. He's also shooting 50% from the field. folks, if these three guys are getting to the foul line, they're going to be knocking down free throws. That could be very significant in this tightly contested ball game between the Vanderbilt Commodores and the LSU Tigers. And in our next contest, we're going to head down to Coleman Coliseum for the Oklahoma Sooners playing their first game as a member of the Southeastern Conference. They will be taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. You're looking live at Coleman Coliseum, where Alabama will welcome in Oklahoma in this marquee SEC matchup. Alabama, ranked 8th in our power rankings, enter this contest with an 11-2 record and a high-powered offense. Oklahoma, ranked 40th in our power rankings, come in undefeated, 13-0, with an efficient and balanced team led by head coach Porter Moser. With contrasting styles and elite talent on both sides, this matchup could set the tone for both teams in conference play. And let's start right there with the Oklahoma Sooners. Come in ranked 40th, as I mentioned. Oklahoma boasts that 13-0 record, highlighted by 3 wins over quality opponents. But their strength of schedule, only 202nd out of 364 teams, raises questions about how well tested they've been in the non-conference. On the other end of the spectrum, Alabama, 8th in our power rankings, have played a much tougher schedule, 5th in the nation, and their head coach, Nate Oates, has built a fast-paced, high-scoring team that thrives in transition and is difficult to beat at home. Let's start there with Oklahoma's offense versus this Alabama Crimson Tide defense. Oklahoma averaging 83 points per game. That's 44th in the nation, with an efficient field goal percentage of almost 49%. They are elite from the free throw line, shooting at I'm looking at their free throw percentage correctly. Yes, that is correct. Shooting 82% from the free throw line, and they excel in limiting turnovers. 1 assist to 1 turnover. Want to see that a little bit better. Alabama's defense, while athletic, struggles to contain offenses this year, allowing their opponents to score at a 77.2 points per game. That's one of the worst in the nation, 314th out of that 364 teams playing in Division I basketball. We know that's partly due to the frenetic pace that they play at. Their defensive strength lies in rebounding. 74.5 defensive rebounding percentage and averaging almost 5 blocked shots per game. Oklahoma's ability to exploit Alabama's defensive gaps could define this matchup. Now, when we talk about scoring, nobody in the nation scores better than the Alabama Crimson Tide, coming in averaging almost 90 points per game, and they thrive on that fast pace that I talked about, almost 76 possessions per game, and getting it done on the offensive glass with an offensive rebounding percentage of almost 36%. However, Alabama has struggled from the free throw line, only shooting 70.5% from the free throw line, and a 3-point accuracy of 31.6% remains concerning. Oklahoma's defense is stout, allowing 67.5 points per game. It's 94th in the nation and forcing 14 turnovers per game. They limit opponents to shoot just 27% from behind that 3-point line, presenting a challenge for Alabama shooters in this contest. Now, Alabama holds a significant edge in rebounding with a total rebounding percentage of 56%, compared that to Oklahoma's 51%. The Crimson Tide's offensive rebounding could create numerous second chance opportunities. Oklahoma's ability to score defensive rebounds will be critical in slowing down Alabama's pace and limiting their scoring opportunities. Alabama's ball movement has been exemplary with 17 assists per game and a assist percentage of 56%. Their assist to turnover ratio of 1.6 assists per every turnover highlights their disciplined play, something that has gotten better under Nate Oates as his tenure there as the head coach of Alabama. Now, Oklahoma has been solid with averaging about 14.6 assists per game, but they lag with the assist to turnover ratio, basically 1 assist to every turnover. This could lead to issues against an Alabama high pressure defense. And we know Alabama likes to get out in transition, and it's highlighted by the pace and game flow. Alabama thrives in fast paced game situations. Like I mentioned, averaging 76 possessions per game, while Oklahoma only 69 possessions per game. This faster tempo could force Oklahoma out of their comfort zone, especially if Alabama is able to get off to an early lead. Oklahoma will aim to slow this game down, forcing Alabama into a lot of half-court sets. In clutch situations, both teams have performed well in close games. Oklahoma is 4-0 in games decided by 7 points or less. Alabama 3-1 in similar contests, and unbeaten at home with that 6-0 record there in Coleman Coliseum. Now, the difference could be the free throw shooting, which favors Oklahoma very significant if this game is close late there in the second half. But Alabama's ability to generate those second chance points could prove decisive in this contest. As we give some final thoughts here on this contest, this game projects to be very tight early in the contest. Alabama's, with their ability to rebound, especially on the offensive glass, and get out in transition, could overwhelm Oklahoma. However, if Oklahoma is able to slow this game down, limit the turnovers, could make this game closer than what's being anticipated. Let's give the key players to watch for Oklahoma. Jeremiah Fears, 18 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists per game. Jalen Moore, 17.7 points per game, almost 6 rebounds per game. And then Duke Mills, 12.5 points per game, getting it done from behind the arc, shooting at 46%. For the Alabama Crimson Tide, they're led by their fantastic guard there, Mark Sears, 18 points per game, 4 assists, shooting almost 81% from the free throw line. Grant Nelson, 13 points per game, 8.6 rebounds per game. And LeBaron Philon, 12.4 points per game, almost 4 assists per game, shooting 54% from the field there. Final thoughts and keys to victory for both teams. Oklahoma must slow the pace, dominate defensive boards, and capitalize on free throw opportunities. For Alabama, they need to push the tempo, dominating on the offensive glass, and improve that three-point efficiency there. And we got 2 more games to wrap up here, and let's head to the Lone Star State here as Texas playing their first game as a member of the SEC Conference, taking on in-state rival in Texas A&M. You are looking live at the Reed Arena as I mentioned, Texas A&M welcoming in-state opponent Texas in an electrifying SEC showdown. Both teams come in with identical 11-2 marks on their record, but home court could be an advantage, and strength of schedule heavily favors Texas A&M. Texas, led by head coach Rodney Terry, boasts an explosive offense, while Buzz Williams, Aggies rely on physicality and dominance on the boards. And let's start with the profile here. Texas comes in ranked 28th in our power rankings. Texas relies on their 29th ranked offense that sees the Longhorns averaging 84.5 points per game to drive their success. Their defensive metrics, 62 points per game allowed, 15th in the nation, while impressive, but doing it against a very weak strength of schedule, 334th out of 365 teams, raises questions about Texas' ability to perform against tougher opponents. For the Aggies, comes in ranked 24th in our power rankings. The Aggies combine an efficient defense, 62.6 points per game, 19th in the nation, and dominance on the boards with a total rebounding percentage of 59%. Perfect at home, 7-0, underscores their ability to protect home court in marquee matchups. Let's talk about the Texas offense going up against this Aggie defense. Texas scores 84.5 points per game, as I mentioned, 29th in the nation, with a scorching 51.7% field goal percentage there, and shooting almost 42% from behind the arc, ranking them amongst the nation's most efficient offenses with a 125.8 offensive rating there. Texas A&M counters with a stingy defense, allowing opponents to shoot just 38% from the field and even better from the three-point line, just 28.8%. The key will be whether Texas can maintain their offensive efficiency against a Texas A&M physical defense. Let's take a look at the Aggie offense. The Aggies come in averaging 76 points per game, but struggle with shooting consistently, only 43% from the field there. Their offensive rebounding percentage there, 44.1%, tops in the nation there, creating second chance opportunities, which could be crucial against this Texas aggressive defense. Texas averages forcing their opponents into 12 turnovers per game and just allowing 62 points per game. Their relatively low block and steal rates might limit their ability to disrupt A&M's rhythm when they have the ball. As far as the rebounding and possession battle, Texas A&M holds a decisive edge in rebounding with a total rebounding percentage of 59% compared to Texas's 55% there. The Aggies' ability to dominate on the offensive glass will likely create some additional scoring opportunities. Texas must focus on defensive rebounding, limiting Texas A&M second chance points in this ball game. Now, as far as the assist and ball movement, Texas comes in averaging 15.5 assists per game, showcasing their ability for good ball movement. But their assist to turnover ratio, 1.3 assists to every turnover, indicates occasional struggles with taking care of the ball. A&M comes in averaging 13 assists per game and a low assist percentage there of only 51%. Suggests that they play a lot more isolation-based offense, which teams can move the ball more effectively. Whichever team can move the ball much more effectively may find success in breaking down the opposing defense. As far as the pace and game flow, both teams operate at a similar pace. Texas averages about 68 possessions per game. Same can be said for A&M. So the pace of this game is not going to favor either team, making execution and efficiency in critical situations key in this ball game. Speaking of clutch situations, Texas has played 2 games where the final score has been within 7 points, and they've won both of them. A&M has played in 5 close games, winning 4. Their experience in high-pressure moments could be an advantage in a tightly contested ball game. Both teams shoot very well from the free throw line. Texas a little bit better at 72%, A&M about 70%. But A&M has a much higher free throw rate, and that just means how often they get to the free throw line, suggests that they're much more adept in drawing fouls and getting to that foul line. Let's give some key players to watch before I give the keys here. For Texas, Trey Johnson averaging almost 20 points per game, knocking down almost 45% from the from the 3-point line. Doing that on 49% shooting from the field. Arthur Kaluma averaging about 14 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, and doing that on 53% shooting from the field. And then Jordan Pope, 11.6 points per game, will absolutely need to contribute a lot in this contest for the Longhorns. Key player for A&M, Wade Taylor IV, almost 16 points per game, averaging 5 assists. Mr. Phelps comes in averaging 13 points per game, 4 rebounds per game. And then Harry Coleman III, 9 points per game, 5 rebounds. Our final thoughts and keys for the Longhorns: need to leverage their shooting efficiency, especially from the 3-point range, limit turnovers. Defensive rebounding will be critical to prevent A&M from dominating second chance points. For the Aggies, they must exploit their edge in rebounding and physicality while improving their shooting efficiency to capitalize on extra possessions. Controlling the tempo at home will be critical for the Aggies if they're looking to come away with a win in this contest. And folks, that leaves us with the Showcase Showdown game of the week, and that is the Florida Gators heading up to Lexington in historic Rupp Arena to take on the Wildcats. Kentucky welcomes in Florida to kick off SEC play, and I cannot wait for this contest, with that game slated to tip off at 10 a.m. there on ESPN. Florida comes into this matchup as one of the top-ranked teams in the nation, boasting an undefeated 13-0 record, while Kentucky comes in with an 11-2 record, looking to defend its perfect record at home. This clash between two elite offenses promises a high-scoring and tightly contested ball game. And let's look at the team profile here. For the Florida Gators, they come in ranked 6th in our power rankings, and doing so with a strong margin of victory, almost winning each contest on average by 24 points per game. Kentucky comes in with a power ranking of 25th. Let me make sure I have that right here. Yes. So Kentucky comes in as our 25th power ranked team with an impressive set of metrics as well, and doing it up against a really quality strength of schedule, the 40th best strength of schedule in the nation. Both teams have multiple wins against quality opponents, with Florida excelling on the defensive end and Kentucky leveraging their high-scoring offense. Let's talk about the Gators here when they have the ball. This Florida Gator offense has been prolific, averaging 87 points per game, 8th in the nation, fueled by shooting 47% from the field and 34% from the 3-point line. Their ability to convert free throws, 73% at the charity stripe, and capitalizing on second chance opportunities through their offensive rebounding makes them a challenging opponent. While this Kentucky defense has not been elite, but limits opponents to a respectable 40.5% field goal percentage there, and they excel on the defensive glass. 75.5 defensive rebounding percentage there. Florida's challenge in this ball game will be maintaining their efficiency against Kentucky's size and shot blocking presence. For the Wildcats on offense, They thrive at putting the ball in the basket. 89 points per game, third in the nation, supported by a field goal percentage of 48% and absolutely lights out from behind the three-point line at 35.5% from behind the arc. Their transition game and straw ball movement, 18, almost 19 assists per game, creates consistent scoring opportunities. However, they're going to face a Florida defense that excels in forcing their opponents into turnovers. Almost 13 turnovers per game is what this Gator defense is forcing their opponents into, and limiting opportunities to a mere 36.9% field goal percentage is just phenomenal there by the Gators, which includes an elite ability to guard the three-point line. Their opponents only shooting 26.6% from behind the arc. Kentucky's ability to protect the ball and find open looks will be critical in this matchup. As far as the rebounding and possession battle, rebounding could tilt this game in Florida's favor as they boast a superior total rebounding percentage of 59.5% compared to Kentucky's 53.5%. Florida's dominance on the offensive glass will need to show up in this ball game, where they come in averaging 41% offensive rebounding percentage. That contrasts with the Kentucky struggle to secure defensive boards, as Kentucky is allowing their opponents 30% offensive rebounding percentage. Here's the key. Kentucky's size and depth provides a counterbalance, making this matchup a key battleground. Let's take a look at the assist and ball movement for both teams. Kentucky comes in with their offense revolving around efficient and effective ball movement. And that's reflected when you're averaging almost 19 assists per game and your assist percentage of 59%. Means your guys are getting a lot of wide open looks either at the rim or behind the arc, and they're knocking those shots down. Florida, while slightly behind, averaging only 16 assists per game, but they excel in creating opportunities through quick transition. Now, Kentucky is superior in assist to turnover ratio. Almost 1.7 assists per every turnover. Highlights their disciplined play, giving them an edge in this ball game. If Kentucky is able to maintain that, it's going to give them an opportunity to get that win there in Rupp. Both teams like to play at a faster pace. 73 possessions for Kentucky, almost 72 for Florida. The slight difference in tempo gives a slight edge to Kentucky, who thrives in high-scoring, fast-paced game situations. Florida will aim to control the pace and limit transition opportunities for this Kentucky explosive offense. Folks, if you've been to Rupp, whether in person or watched it on TV, if they get that crowd going early in that ball game, could be very problematic there for the Gators. In clutch situations, remember this, folks, Florida has only played one close game that's 7 points or less. And of course, they won it. While Kentucky has experienced 3 such games, winning 2, losing 1. Kentucky has been perfect at home at Rupp, 9-0, providing them with a significant advantage, while Florida's lone road game was a narrow win. Both teams excel in free throw shooting, with Florida converting about 73%, Kentucky slightly better at 74%. And in this contest, I think we're going to be in store for a fantastic matchup. Let's give you a couple of players to watch in this contest here. For Florida, Walter Clayton Jr. at 17 points per game, 3 rebounds, and almost 4 assists per game. Elijah Martin, 15 points per game, almost 6 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game. And then Will Richard, 14 points per game, 5 rebounds, 2 assists for that young guard there for the Gators. As far as Kentucky goes, double O. Won't call him the big O because only Oscar Robertson gets called the big O. But double O comes in averaging 16 points per game for Kentucky. Lamont Butler, 13 points per game, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. And then Jackson Robinson, almost 12 points per game and 4 rebounds. Here are the keys for both teams. Florida must dominate the boards and limit Kentucky's transition opportunities. Efficient shooting and protecting the ball will be critical for the Gators in this road matchup. For Kentucky, they need to leverage that home court advantage, push the pace in this ball game, and exploit their superior ball movement and rebounding in this contest. I think that this is going to be a fantastic game. Can't wait for this thing to tip off here on Saturday morning there from Rupp Arena. Want to say thank you for listening to the podcast, and we will see you coming up very soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the SEC conference call. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and our deep dive into all things SEC basketball. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like this video and hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at CrunchTimeVIP for updates, insights, and more basketball content. And make sure to visit our website at crunchtimesportsadvantage.com for in-depth blogs, game previews, and information about our Crunch Time Express handicapping packages. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the SEC conference call.